But speaking of the Patriots and quarterbacks, Peter, there is news. Boston Globe reporting that the Patriots and Cam Newton have agreed to terms on a one-year deal. So one of the great mysteries, two of the great mysteries, really, of the looming offseason are solved. Cam is off the market, and the Patriots apparently have their quarterback for 2021.
I'm a bit mystified by this, but, it must come down to the fact that New England looks at its options and says, Jimmy Garoppolo, do we really love him enough to make a huge trade for him? No, we really don't. We're drafting 15th. Do we really love Mac Jones enough to, A, risk that he'll be there at 15 or trade up to make sure we get him or any of the quarterbacks? And so I look at the Patriots and I look at this move and I said, it's a pragmatic move, because I just saw this too. It's a pragmatic move because they didn't think they could do better.
Well, that's right. They didn't think they could do better. And with the opportunity of a full year to work with Cam Newton, maybe it will be better. The COVID-19 issue, he denied having any type of brain fog, but he's later said that illness affected him throughout the course of the season. That derailed things at a time when they were looking like they could move in the right direction, that this could work out. So maybe a reset, another chance, another opportunity. And when you consider the money that they have, and who knows what they're going to pay Cam Newton. They ended up getting him last year, Peter, for a final price. When you consider all the incentives, per game roster bonuses, etc., they got him for $3.7 million last year. I don't know yet. I haven't seen what they're going to pay him this year. But they've got the money to spend elsewhere. They were smart about the cap. They're one of the teams that wishes the cap was lower because they planned for a significant reduction in the salary cap because of the pandemic. They want it lower for strategic reasons because it's going to help them if it's lower. They still have the money to spend. They put some players around Cam Newton. They were 7-9 last year despite all of the struggles. They're not far away from being a team that could be competitive and relevant and playoff bound in 2021.
And, look, this only happens if Bill Belichick is sold on Cam Newton. And you know what this does to me, Mike? This says to Cam Newton that, hey, one of the greatest coaches in the history of team sports saw you have, to be charitable, a mediocre year in 2020. And then he thought enough of you to want round two, to have a second year with Cam Newton. And, the other thing that this does, Mike, and so my point is that Cam Newton must say, okay, I'm playing for this guy, and I'm going to leave no stone unturned this offseason to be fantastic for this guy. But I'll tell you what else this does, Mike, because the Patriots, obviously, with, whatever they have, $68 million, according to over the cap, available under the cap, Cam obviously is not going to take a lot of that. So what this does is it says to the Patriots, okay, now you have such horrible weapons. You got terrible weapons now. Go get Kenny Golladay and Jonnu Smith. Rebuild your wide receiver and tight end rooms right now, this year. You want to be a contender next year? Go get those two guys, or go get a really good receiver and a really good tight end. Because right now you do not have weapons befitting even a borderline playoff team.
Well, but the Patriots rarely go out and spend right out of the gates in free agency. I recall two guys for whom they paid market value. Adalius Thomas in 2007-ish, that didn't work out. And then Stephon Gilmore a few years ago when he left the Bills, that did work out. I think that what the Patriots will do instead, like they typically do, let the market soften and go out and buy up a bunch of these guys we talked about last hour who aren't going to be getting big money, and you convince them to come to New England. Now, New England doesn't have the shine that it once did, but it's still a place where you're going to contend, you're going to compete, you're going you're going to more likely than not be relevant. And hey, there's a lot of guys in the NFL who respect Cam Newton, and a lot of guys in the NFL who are going to want to play with Cam Newton, and that's going to help them as well. But I think the Patriots may be able to go out and bargain shop like never before to round up guys who can come in and for a relatively low price, for real value. You said last week when a Gabe Jackson is available, you're gonna compare him to who you have on the roster, dollar for dollar. Who can I get at a cheaper price? And you're going to have some guys currently on the team who think they're going to be on the team who aren't going to be on the team because they're going to get supplanted by one of these other guys who is a better bargain when you look at the cap dollars invested in getting that player.
If the Patriots do that, Mike, then to me, and I don't deny that you're right, and I, on the one hand, I hate this sort of everybody leaping out there to sign this year's bright, shiny object. More often than not, it ends up hurting your team. And I guess if the Patriots do wait, then they wait for, say, John Brown and Jared Cook, instead of sitting there right then and basically saying, we're going to go shop at the top of the market. If they wait 2 weeks, then they go get guys either for one-year contracts who are good players, or, maybe a 2 or 3 year contract, but guys who they don't view as being permanent guys, but just upgrades over what they have right now. It's going to be interesting to see if Belichick breaks his own mold.
There was a report, one of the Sunday Splash reports, the final Sunday of the regular season, that Newton and the Patriots were expected to part ways. Belichick bristled at that after their season-ending game. And ever since then, we've gotten the indications Cam was willing to go back, Belichick praising Cam, and here it is. I'm really not surprised by it. I'm surprised it happened before Cam got a chance to see what was out there, but you know what? Here's the reality. He knows what's out there. When Matt Milano re-signed with the Bills yesterday, Matt Milano wasn't getting the interest in free agency, I was told recently, that he thought he was going to get. The market's already open. The tampering has happened. And Cam Newton, there's no way his representation didn't call every other team that's looking for a quarterback and have the hypothetical conversation about a certain hypothetical 2015 league MVP who hypothetically is available to any team that hypothetically is looking for a quarterback. So he knows what's out there. He knows what's behind every other door before he takes what the Patriots are offering. That's how they got to this point before the market opened. Good for both sides to get it done. They know there's certainty, and now they can focus on other positions. And I was excited last year to see what Cam was going to do for New England when he arrived on short notice. This time around, he has maximum opportunity, whatever offseason program they have, maximum opportunity to get ready. Second year in the offense. I like it. And I think that the Patriots will surprise people this year, and it's going to be the Patriots and Cam Newton hosting the Buccaneers and Tom Brady at some point during the 2021 regular season.
Mike, there's two other factors Cam Newton going back to New England. Number one, because you really don't know if he's your long-term guy, all of a sudden the Patriots can sit there with the 15th pick in the draft. And what happens if young Trey Lance from North Dakota State is there at pick 15? What do? Maybe they just take a long-term guy, because most NFL people believe that Trey Lance probably needs a year of seasoning, or maybe 2 years of seasoning, after having a pretty inexperienced, Division I AA or FCS, whatever it's called, or FBS. I forget what that stuff is called. But the other thing that this does, Mike, is that it basically takes the New England Patriots out of the realm of, to me, trading up and trying to get a great quarterback in this draft, trying to get their dream quarterback. Now, that's one more team that needed a quarterback that has its question answered. Not to say that they ever were going to be in position for Deshaun Watson, but it is just one more team that could convince Nick Caserio, the longer I wait, the fewer candidates there are going to be.
And Trey Lance's pro day workout happens today. They can wait until one of the later rounds to get a guy that they can quietly groom and develop. That's typically how they've done things. Even Brady, if you haven't heard, at some point in the last 21 years was a low-round pick. So, when you go all in with that first-round quarterback, you're taking a chance, especially if you're giving up extra assets to trade up. And Bill Belichick is the kind of guy who wants to have maximum lottery tickets in the draft, not go all in and move up. And obviously Jarrett Stidham may be going the way of Brian Hoyer. Although you keep Stidham around, he's entering year 3 of a mid-round rookie deal. You can keep him around, keep him in the system, have him as an emergency option. But also, I think, Peter, there's room there if they move on from Hoyer to have a young guy who's on the depth chart who quietly and diligently spends this year learning the ropes, and then maybe in a year or two he can become the guy if they get someone who develops the way that a guy like Tom Brady developed 21 years ago. Not that lightning's ever going to strike twice in the same lifetime for the Patriots, but that's the model. You get a guy who doesn't have all the pressure and the expectation of being a first-round pick, who still has some skills, and you see whether and to what extent he can bring those skills out with a year or two on the bench.
The one last thing I would say about Newton and the Patriots is that, look, Belichick, I think, is really lucky right now to have Josh McDaniels as his sort of solid kind of aide de camp. And, it's not that Josh McDaniels is dictating what's going on, but this signing tells me that McDaniels really liked Cam, and he liked working with him, and he was a worker bee. So I think that the chemistry had to have been good in the quarterback room, which you always heard it was, and with Josh McDaniels. And I think probably Belichick and McDaniels both figure this is the best we can do to be a competitive team this year. And so, you worry about this year, and then you worry about next year. So I think the Patriots have always done that. And this is a great example of we're not really going to be totally focused, unless we get a quarterback who falls in our lap at 15. We're not going to be totally focused on this, on 2022. All that matters is being as good as we can be this year.
Greg Bedard, who was one of your charter members at the Monday Morning Quarterback team back in 2013-ish. Did I get the year right? Was it 2013?
You did, yeah, 2013.
Wow. I shouldn't have asked then. I should have just kept going. Anyway, Bedard recently said on his podcast that Jimmy Garoppolo was the plan A for the Patriots at quarterback this year. And it's possible that was still accurate. It's possible they just decided we can't wait for the 49ers to get their upgrade before they figure out what they're going to do with Garoppolo, because I believe the 49ers aren't going to let that bird out of their hand until they know they have someone better, whether it's trading for Sam Darnold, getting someone in the draft, whatever. The Patriots don't want to sit around and wait, because then Cam Newton's going to be gone. And this is why the advanced tampering can be useful. You get an idea of what's out there, what's not out there. And I think this is the first sign of why it's important. Even though Deshaun Watson wasn't going to go to New England, Russell Wilson's not going to go to New England. This is what happens when teams aren't going to wait around. Because when you wait around to go for what may be your plan A, if Bedard was accurate and Garoppolo was the plan A, you sit around and wait for plan A, you lose plan B. And we're going to see teams move to plan B if they don't think they have a good shot at plan A. That could quite well be what the Patriots did.
Hey, look, Greg really knows the Patriots, so I have full confidence in him when he says that. And I think the biggest thing with Garoppolo, and what you're talking about with the timing, is absolutely correct. But there was another scenario pointed out to me by somebody who knows the 49ers quite well. Trade the 43rd pick in the draft to the Jets and get Sam Darnold, okay? And don't trade Jimmy Garoppolo. Basically, keep Garoppolo around and know that, in essence, the hot breath of Sam Darnold is coming down his neck. And this is the year that will decide if you're the long-term quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers or if we move to Darnold or someone else. Because, Mike, everybody has always said, well, if you get Darnold, you've got you've got to guarantee that 5th year and all that. No, you don't. That can be, Sam Darnold is smart enough to know that if they move away next year from Jimmy Garoppolo, he's smart enough to know I've died and gone to heaven if I could work with Kyle Shanahan on a contending team every year. And so, are you going to take the last dime in a contract if you become a free agent? Not saying you would. Maybe in December of this year, they'd go after him hard and try to sign him. But anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm just simply saying that I do not think that trading for Sam Darnold would automatically mean end of days for Jimmy Garoppolo in San Francisco.
Here's the only problem with that scenario. When, as a practical matter, the cap is dropping $25 million from where it was supposed to be. It's one thing to focus on the reduction of 15.7, but it had gone up by $10 million every year since 2013. Teams were expecting another $10 million bump. 208 is what they were expecting. It's 182.5 instead. When you take a $25 million difference and throw on top of it Garoppolo making $25 million this year, that's too much to pay Garoppolo. If they're going to do that, they need to squeeze Garoppolo to take less. And that's why last week I was intrigued by the report that the 49ers had called the Panthers about Teddy Bridgewater, because Bridgewater's due to make $17 million this year. And I thought maybe that was a way to subtly open the door to the reality that the 49ers aren't going to pay Garoppolo $25 million this year, because let's face it, Peter, if they would cut him, no one's paying him $25 million this year. Not for a guy that's missed 23 games, more than he's won over the past 4 years.
Over the last 3 years. And Mike, the other way to look at that story is just simply to say that, because my belief is that Kyle Shanahan still really likes Garoppolo, but the realistic part of this story is that if he slips on a banana peel on October 1st and he's out for the year, they can't rely on the CJ Beathard's of the world, Nick Mullins. You can't rely on them anymore, because they have shown they're nice backup quarterbacks, nice, but they're not winning elements on a playoff team. And like when the Eagles had Nick Foles, they knew that they could win playoff games with Nick Foles. Now, he's not the greatest quarterback in the world, but they knew that he was good enough to win playoff games. And in San Francisco, that's one of the reasons why I would go out and get on his rookie contract one more year of Sam Darnold. And I would say, hey, listen, I can't tell what's going to happen at the end of this year. I really can't. But for now, having a Garoppolo-Darnold combo platter in a football sense, not in a salary cap sense, but in a football sense, really makes you a better team.
There's one wild card in San Francisco, and I'm not suggesting that he's going to get the job or he's going to do enough to even stay on the roster. But they have Josh Rosen. Remember, he was content last year to be on the Tampa Bay practice squad, and then the opportunity arose to go to San Francisco, and he jumped at the chance to work with Kyle Shanahan. And in that system, there's a chance they develop the right relationship, the right chemistry, and if Rosen is smart enough to know that the path to success in Shanahan's offense is to do exactly what Shanahan wants, every way, every play, every read, every step, every throw, if he can figure that out and do it consistently, he's got a chance to be the guy. And that would be the steal of all steals, a top 10 quarterback from 2018 that you get on the street and you quietly groom behind the scenes into a quarterback that can be the answer for you over the long haul. Long way to go before that happens, but it just shows you that Shanahan has options. He knows how to work with quarterbacks, and bottom line is they're not ready to pull the plug on Garoppolo, so the Patriots not able to wait for Garoppolo, pivot to Cam Newton. He will be back with New England, according to now multiple reports. Newton back to the Patriots on a one-year deal.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.